Well, good morning, everybody. It is May 22nd, 2023, and I apologize earlier. I was trying to stream through OBS and do a screen share, and it wasn't working. So I had to cut on out and just go live right from YouTube. So here we are. Not a big deal. I'll figure out the technical difficulties later. It's kind of annoying though, because I could see it fine on OBS, but it wasn't broadcasting right. So I don't know. Um, Hey, I want to keep it short and simple this morning. I was going to do a screen share because I wanted to show you an article, but I can just read the article like I always do. So, anyway, the Monday morning chat is my way of being able to interact with my viewing audience by being able to share and communicate our struggles and our common problems that are happening here inside of the recovery space. We can better help one another and confront our own addictions. Um, this morning, I wanted to talk about a couple of things. Number one was a poll that I had conducted earlier last week, which the question was my sense of shame primarily came from, and then I listed four options: humiliation, guilt, embarrassment, and failure. So again, it's humiliation, guilt, embarrassment, or failure. And I talked with a few other people about this because there was some confusion about what's the difference between humiliation and embarrassment. And I didn't put that in the poll, but I think it's really good to talk about that difference because humiliation is the sense of shame that comes in relationships to others. So, whether you're feeling that sense of humiliation because others are placing it on you, or you feel the humiliation as a result of being in the presence of others, whereas general embarrassment, you could be alone in a room and still feel embarrassed for yourself, right? So, a sense of embarrassment is just shame. It can either happen in isolation or from others, but usually humiliation is because the active agent of the other, whether it's entities involved, being placed on you or you feeling humiliation in the presence because of others. So it is a two-way street. But embarrassment is just a generalized sense. So that's the way they're different. But anyway, the poll results: 43% of you, or of the people who answered the poll, place guilt as number one. And failure, I knew it would be high, but 31% of you think that failure was the sense of your shame. And then humiliation came in at third at 18%, and the last was embarrassment at 6%. So it was interesting results. And I talked to a couple of recovery buddies yesterday about that. And I asked them the same question because they hadn't seen that poll. And interestingly enough, every single one of them answered differently. So just so you get a sense, I mean, even though we're all in the same kind of, boiling pot, right? We're all frogs in that boiling pot. Um, our sense when it comes to, shame, when it comes to the topic of shame, it's experienced differently by every single one of us. Like each one of us has our own, whether it's ethical makeup or the sense of pride that comes from, the control mechanisms. We all come about shame differently. What did I want to talk about this morning? One was an article. This is the main thing I wanted to talk about. Primarily, I'll occasionally, you've seen it on my YouTube channel, and I talk about on Twitter occasionally, but I will do a case study of some performer who's inside of the industry that is in a world of hurt. And this one, it happens to be Riley Reed. And she's kind of a mess, and she's been a mess for a while. And it's interesting, like the more some of these performers who, some of them are in the industry, so still some of them get out of the industry, the more they keep talking, the more you get to see how damaged they really are. Um, and it's a trope almost, but there's a reason for the trope because it's a damaged industry. It brings in damaged people. Some of them come in damaged, and others get damaged by the industry. But I like to shed light on this because as a addict and as somebody who consumed product that these people produced, it's helpful to see the full sense of humanity that is the performer itself, and to kind of understand that this breaks a lot of people, and by consuming the product, you're helping perpetuate the damaged industry and the damaged people who perform in this industry. They couldn't do their job, so to speak, if it wasn't for consumers like you, right? Um, so let's just read the article. Riley Reid is one of the world's most successful porn stars and lives in a $4.8 million mansion, yet she wouldn't recommend her career to others. In an emotional YouTube video, the 31-year-old, really named Ashley Matthews, admitted that her job had destroyed her relationship with her family and caused a range of issues in her personal life. A lot of times when people ask me if they should do porn, I tell them no. I tell them that it makes life really hard, and it makes dating really hard, and it makes your family life really hard. It makes intimacy hard, she said in a 2020 clip, which recently surfaced on Twitter. If you're putting yourself out there and the world is now judging you, you have to be okay with being shamed every day of your life. Matthews went on to say that the abuse she suffered had really put her off on starting her own family. I didn't even want to have children because I do porn, because I'm worried about the way people will treat my child. And if you're curious, there's been a lot of other performers recently, within the last year, who have said the same thing, like Lana Rhodes, for example. She just recently had a child. She's been saying this for a while. And uh, Leah Gotti, who was another one who's been in the news recently, who has said the exact same things. And in all of those situations, the more these people got in front of a camera, the more you heard backstory as to like the difficulties that were surrounding their life before they even got inside of the industry, but certainly after they got into the industry. And in the case of Lana Rhodes and Leah Gotti in particular, those women were really messed up. I mean, really dysfunctional lives before they even got into the industry. Continuing, she then acknowledged that her mother had been supportive at the start of her career. She kind of let me do whatever, but things soon turned sour. When I started to set boundaries, not giving her money or things like that, it made our relationship a bit more difficult and almost toxic, and so it sucks. I don't have a mom anymore. I don't talk to her. I miss having a mom. I feel like you can't rewind and can't go back. I don't have the relationship with her anymore. I don't even think about I don't ever think I will, and it bums me out. It bums me out a lot. Matthews said her career had also been driving a wedge between her religious father and her. Recently, I wanted to go visit him, and he said I can't go to the house and visit because of his wife. My stepmom doesn't want me there. She said I'm not allowed to go visit my father anymore because my stepmom doesn't want me to do porn. She then continued, but I was like, well, can we go get some coffee or breakfast? He said, I just don't want to be seen in public with you. And that fucking hurts so bad and it sucks. Wiping back tears, she continued, I have lost my family. I don't talk to my brothers or my sisters. I think they all kind of tried to take advantage of me and stuff. And they're just like my dad. They don't want to be around me. And for the record, just so you know, you've probably seen me say this a lot on Twitter, and I know I've said it on my YouTube channel. Shaming doesn't get you anywhere, man. Like if you're dropping shame or guilt on other people as a way of being able to motivate them, you can see like it's damaging. But often what happens, if you are the agent of shame, if you're trying to distribute that shame, it doesn't have the effect you think it tends to have, and that applies to both addiction, but it also applies to a situation like this. She's said in other interviews in the past that the attempts to leverage those sorts of things at her almost kind of coaxed her into getting into the industry even more. Like it, in other words, it didn't act as a demotivational tactic. It actually kind of enticed her to do it. So you really have to kind of watch, if you think that shaming is going to be an active tool for anything, you really have to kind of pay attention and see, what is this actually accomplishing and why am I going through the shaming process. Chances are you're doing it because you don't want something to happen. It's your method for control. But as often happens, your method for control will have almost counterintuitive aspects to it. In other words, it will actually promote the behavior you're trying to stop. And yet, despite her reservations about having children, Matthews and her husband, Pasha Pickens, became parents to a baby girl in November last year. The 31-year-old is a loving mother, and heartwarming photos are posted on Instagram, blah, blah, blah. And we get down here to the bottom. However, understanding she's not loving the backlash her defenseless child has received. The amount of people who are leaving comments about the baby is crazy. And this, this gets onto something else, which is like, don't put your personal life on Twitter looking for compliments. And this is kind of a problem, just not with, I would say, the porn stars in general, but like society in general. It's like, um, what she's doing here by putting that stuff out on social media is trying to solicit positive feedback for herself. In other words, she wants to have the positive feedback. She elicits this, and it's a form of codependency. She needs that emotional feedback from others to be able to feel better about herself because she can't stand on her own two legs. And this doesn't just apply to porn stars. Obviously, this is a larger problem with lots of different people. I work with lots of men who have the exact same problem, that this need for um, codependency, and this desire to feel fulfilled by having somebody else tell you how good you are. It's not just egoism. It's like, it comes from not having a good foundational emotional growth inside of your own life, and then you get sucked into this process of constantly needing that feedback to feel good about yourself. And it very much has a lot to do with addiction in general. You find a lot of addicts are in that space as well, and certainly she's, no different from it. But the second you start catching something like that, you got to put the kibosh on it. You right away have to start jumping in and saying to yourself, "Oh, look what I'm doing here," and then put the brakes on that process. It's like, I'm trying to solicit feedback from others so that I can feel good about myself. Second you catch yourself doing that, it's like, oh, okay, that's what I'm doing. You'd be mindful about the process that you're going through, and then you take action to stop that from happening again. Because the more you keep leaning on that, the more you're going to keep looking for that gratification and trying to fill a hole that can never be filled. Man, there will never be enough people that are on social media to be able to tell you how nice of a person you are. It keeps that feedback loop going and going, and it becomes an addiction in its own right. Anyway, so that was about Riley, but certainly she's not alone. And to as an addict, as a viewing member of my audience, every once in a while, take this in, like consume this, like understand that these are full blown people, intelligent creatures, right? They have their own intelligent and emotional independence. And they're often coming into this space damaged and doing these things as damaged people. And that by consuming this sort of content that they're producing, you're helping feed that, whether you intended to do it or not. But when you look at some of these other people online and you see, their performances and whatnot, just keep in the back of your mind, it's like, oh, this is a broken person, man. Broken person. I could list out off the top of my head, 20 performers, 20 top tier performers over the last 10 years that are exactly like Riley here. Exactly like Riley here. They're no different. Like, it's almost sad, really, the extent of damage that happens to these performers. Um, and it should certainly, I would hope for you, be motivation enough not to continue consuming their content because the industry just supports this. It supports breaking the wheel that is all the performers' lives. And I'm looking at a picture of Riley here holding your child, and that's not a side you'll ever see on any Pornhub, man. That's a mom trying to survive in this world that she's permanently damaged herself, like for the rest of her life. And how is she gonna filter this out from her child? You got me, man. She can't hide from reality. She'll have to get completely, just to keep it out of her own mind, she'll have to get completely off of social media, or like she says, be accepting of this. And it's a little easy now, though, her kid's really young. What happens when that child gets older? Mm-mm. Anyway, that's all I really wanted to talk about this morning. I'm gonna be this short and sweet because I got other things I got to move on to. Have a good rest of your day, and if you have any problems, feel free to drop me a DM. You can also email me at roadtorecovery11 at yahoo.com. Road to recovery, the number two, recovery, number 11 at yahoo.com. Uh, like, comment, subscribe. It helps drive up this feedback. And as always, you know if you're happening to tune in on this on a Monday morning, feel free to drop some comments down in the chat. I will always provide feedback, or if you have any questions, comments, concerns, I'll answer those as best I can. But take care. Have a good morning.